You're listening to Ernestly Speaking, the only weekly podcast that covers friends, foes, and anything that goes. And now, for your badass host, Ernest Owens. And we're back with a special edition episode of Ernestly Speaking with your host, Ernest Owens, myself. Well, if I'm doing a special edition episode, it is because there are things that come to me that I could have not imagined. And this episode, and the conversation that I'm going to have with this whistleblower who was speaking out for the first time in a very big way about issues at the Philadelphia School District and pertaining to one school that many of us know about in the city of Philadelphia, CAPA. And we're going to talk about some of the issues that this person has brought up, who was aware of it, who was silent, the allegations of retaliation, allegations of misappropriation of funds, and why this issue at CAPA is something that other people have been talking about when it comes to funding issues around the school district, around supporting community schools, public education, all of these things. We're going to have a deep conversation. This person reached out to me following my journalism and my work over the past several months, talking about issues around the Philadelphia School District, transparency, and all of those things. And in light of a recent audit that came out that is going to take place by the city controller, at the request of Council President Kenyatta Johnson, people want to know, where's our taxpayer dollars going? How are our schools being supported? And if leaders, in particular principals, are doing what they should be doing. And this individual who has worked with CAPA in a very important capacity is here to talk to us and to partake in this interview. And so without further ado, I have my special guest, who is in this special edition episode of Ernestly Speaking, Dominique Medley, who does not need any introduction, but those in the public school world, especially those at CAPA, know who she is. Those at school board hearings definitely know who she is. She's been raising issues for quite some time. But without further ado, welcome to the show, Dominique, and let's get into it.
Thank you, Ernest. I'm happy to be here, happy to be speaking with you. And I have been following your work, and I appreciate just the way that you highlight important issues within the district.
So what made you, let's start with what made you come to the show, and tell us a little bit about yourself and your connection to CAPA and all of that.
Sure. So I have a daughter who graduated from CAPA in 2025. I've been part of their version of a home and school partnership since my daughter began at CAPA in 2020. Recently, in 2024-25, I became the president of that organization and remain as such today. So there have been quite a few challenges at CAPA since 2023, starting, I think, maybe somewhere around May of 2023, somewhere around there. And they've continued, and without any action. And so around 2025 is when I started going to board meetings and just making sure that I was reiterating these concerns publicly. So what brought me to your show is the recent activity within the school district and the funding issues that have arose within the district and the different ways that they are handling them, and in some cases not handling them. So when I reviewed some of your work and I learned of the audit, I thought now was a good time to kind of bring up some of the issues that have been going on at CAPA.
Absolutely. And I guess what I'm thinking here is that, you're a whistleblower. You're someone that is speaking out about something that I guess in many ways you're fed up. You've tried other, things. And I want people to know who can't see you because they can only hear you.
Yes.
You're a Black mother.
Yes.
You're a Black woman. You're an HBCU grad.
Yes.
And you're from Philadelphia, and you've raised your child here, your children here, and you've been one of those type of parents that, people don't talk about enough. They always talk about in the news, oh, this parent, parents need to, where are the parents at for their kids? You have been very invested in this school and the families
Yes.
and the parents connected. And I think
Yes.
that's important to ground that, because sometimes people will just say, "Oh, this is just a complaining parent or somebody
Mhm.
who is the I get called the chief articulator of the problem, but you've been working on the solutions or trying to find the solutions."
Yes, and it didn't just start at CAPA. I've always been
Okay.
involved in my daughter's. I have two daughters now, but at the time, for a long time, I just had the one, and
Mm-hmm.
so I pioneered the essence of a home and school uh, partnership at her elementary school. It was the first year I was there, the first year it opened. And from that point, myself and other parents, of course, started the whole parent partnership there and kept it going through her whole tenure there through eighth grade. It was a K through 8. She started there in second grade. That school opened that year, but she was in second grade. And so we started that parent partnership. And even in the private school she was in prior to that, I was part of that parent organization. So this is not something new. And now that she's even in her collegiate years, I'm part of that parent organization. So she's in her sophomore year now in college. This is not something new. I'm always a part and a participant and a partner, not just looking for the issues, but also being part of the resolutions.
Right.
So
No, absolutely. And I want to be clear before we ground this conversation even further and get into the issue at hand and what has happened. A lot of times, even in my own work, and I see this with folks that do whistleblow, I imagine that some of the stuff that you're going to describe, you're going to name some names. There's going to be a lot of allegations made here that are very strong, and you have provided receipts and documentation. I've looked over for listeners. I've looked over several emails and actual receipts, and it's over here we're into receipts, facts, solutions. That's what we're about. And you've provided some receipts and you've provided emails and correspondence. So I want to be clear that before you came to this show, you've shared these issues with other people, correct?
absolutely, um, I've spoken to district leadership in terms of even having meetings detailing some of the concerns that have been going on. So outside of the public board meetings, I've had one-on-one, one-on-two, one-on-three conversations with different district leadership since 2025.
And who
So here
and
we
who's the
are,
and who's some of the district leadership in particular?
So it started out, I met with Tomas Hanna. I met with Dr. An Nguyen. I met with Dr. Watlington and Dr. Dawson directly numerous times. I met with, most recently, Dr. Brenda Elliott and Dr. Nguyen and Noah Tennant.
And what are these positions? So I heard Wallington, that's the superintendent of the school district.
Yes.
You've spoken with
And
these issues with him. Who
yes,
else have you spoken with?
I
Into
spoke with
positions. Yeah.
Deputy Superintendent Dr. Dawson.
Mm-hmm.
At that time, now he's moved on to a different school district. He's no longer with Philadelphia.
Correct.
But I also met with Deputy Superintendent Brenda Elliott, who is his successor. I met with Dr. An Nguyen. She has been trying since the beginning of my concerns that were brought publicly to work diligently with this particular school
Yeah.
and its administration, and in a more in-depth capacity than her role actually requires.
And what's her role specifically?
She's associate. I'm sorry, she is assistant superintendent.
So you've talked to the head brass here.
Yes.
Have you talked to anybody from the school board?
I have not. I've sent emails. They don't really respond.
Okay.
But no, I have not spoken to them directly. I've also sent emails to city council.
Okay.
And I did at one point get a response, and then those responses stopped.
And who was from the city council that you spoke out to?
So I had email correspondence directly with Tiffany White, who I believe is, hold on, let me see, I can tell you, she is the chief of staff for Council President Kenyatta Johnson.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I definitely know who Tiffany is. And so you have done your due diligence.
Yes.
Before you came here.
Absolutely.
To this show, you had tried every other option of sharing this information. And what were the responses, if anything, before we get into the allegations and get into some of the concerns? Because I just want to ground this, because a lot of times people will say, oh, did you try this? Did you try that? Did you call this? Did you call that? Did you do this? Did you do that?
Mhm.
If you would have did this, this wouldn't have happened, and I would have helped. You did that. It seemed like you did the right thing. You're a very
Yeah.
smart woman. You know, a Black mom from Philly. You did everything that I would have done if I was in your shoes.
Yes.
And what was the response? Because clearly you're here. What was the response?
So the responses were always appeared to be kind of placating to my concerns and to the community's concerns. They did take their time
Okay.
in meeting with me. However, there wasn't much notable action, and things continued down these paths of chaos,
Mm-hmm.
despite these monthly meetings at one point with Dr. Dawson and Dr. Watlington, and uh, they were almost just in an effort to kind of pacify the community. And although I appreciated them taking their time, I know that there's not a whole lot of time in their day for meeting with parents and stakeholders. However, that time becomes wasted when you're not when there's no action behind it.
No, I get
And
it.
there's
So
yeah,
it's the giving the we hear you, we see you, we're listening, and
yes.
then there's like no follow up.
Yes. And then there's a lot of, oh, well, these are personnel issues that we can't discuss with you. And so, while that is understood that there, in our jobs, our personnel issues are not discussed with, public people. However, I should be able to see the results
Yeah, you should see
of those.
changes. So if there's somebody
Mhm.
doing something wrong, you should see a
Yes.
notable consequence, or there should be some suspension or some disruption, but you didn't
Yes.
see that. So
So I hear a lot of, there's an investigation here, there's an investigation there, and then I see no fruits of that labor.
I hear that. So let's get to it. So the school in question that we're discussing at the Philadelphia School District is CAPA, which is the Philadelphia High School of the Creative and Performing Arts. It's a magnet school in South Philly. They have been known for their prestigious arts. I've had friends that I went to college with that went to CAPA, and has a rich history. And you being the president of the CAPA Phans, what is the
Yes.
CAPA Phans for those who are like, what is that? What is the CAPA Phans?
Sure. So CAPA Phans is operated essentially as their home and school partnership uh, entity. I guess would be equivalent to like a home and school association.
Right.
What differentiates us from that is that we are an independent 501c3. So we are not governed by the Philadelphia Home and School Council, which is the overarching organization that is over, dare I say, the home and school associations throughout the city. Um,
Right.
so that's the difference between us. But we do a lot of the fundraising, the supporting of academic programs, supporting of students. Anytime there's a need, we try to, fundraise and supply whatever is needed for students, teachers, staff, appreciation, all of those things. We have been a partner that has been able to fund the musical productions that take place at CAPA over the years. There have been some changes within the school district this previous year where the school will absorb most of that responsibility going forward. However, past years, CAPA Phans was the entity that funded those productions, and they usually range anywhere between $40,000 and $60,000 to put on.
Okay.
So,
Yeah. No.
with some of that budget being absorbed by the school as well, but for
Right.
the larger part of that budget was absorbed by CAPA Phans.
Absolutely. So you work in your capacity in this volunteer position. It's unpaid. You don't get paid. You
Yes.
do this because you're, clearly a invested parent, concerned mom. You do it. It's the
Yes.
service. And that's important to know because some people are like, well, who getting, everybody getting checks out here in Philly, but this is unpaid. This is
They're just
volunteer.
not paid.
This is the work that you want to do. So you work closely with the principal of that school. Who is the principal? And I think this is important to note that these are allegations. We're not,
Yes.
There's been no criminal charges filed. This is, Miss Medley's, firsthand account, and she's sharing from her experience. and we want to make sure that is clear. No one has been criminally, tried or any of that kind of stuff. This is someone making an allegation of wrongdoing based on what they've experienced, and this is what whistleblowing looks like in this regard. So I want to put that disclaimer out there. But you you worked in this capacity, in this role as the president of CAPA Phans. You work closely with the principal of the school, and you all have communication and work. Who was the principal, and what was the beginning? What was the relationship like? This is a person who's only been in a position for not that long. I know CAPA has had a series of principals coming in and out, but we want to talk about this current principal because it seems like this is when things have really went from 0 to 100 in this duration. So can you tell us who the principal is and what was the relationship with them like in the beginning? I guess everything, because I know you are both alum of Lincoln.
Yes.
You both went to Lincoln University, which you all like to claim is the first HBCU. As a former professor at Cheney, you are the first degree-granting institution.
Yes.
But details matter. And this is also the college that Mayor Cheryl Parker also attended. And so I know there's some overlap around the times in which you all might have been in the same vicinity around the same age. But I know with this individual who is the president currently, you all loosely knew each other at Lincoln.
Yes.
Who's the principal? What the situation was like? How did this all go about?
Sure. So the principal is Alonzo Fulton.
Okay.
And like you said, we did both attend Lincoln University. I'm older than him, so he was in a class after a couple of classes after me. I did, in fact, and like you said, Cheryl Parker also went to Lincoln University. I was not there at any time when she was there, so I do not know her at all, other than being, the mayor of our great city.
Mm-hmm.
But with Alonzo Fulton, I was familiar with who he was, didn't know him personally. We were on the same gospel choir at Lincoln. There was no, there was no real relationship other than hi, bye, being friendly with everyone. So when I did learn that he was appointed as principal, I think I learned from a Facebook post that he had made because we were already Facebook friends.
Okay.
And so I reached out to him through Facebook, congratulating him, and exchanging information, phone numbers and things. And we texted and decided to schedule a meeting. And from that point on, just, letting him know that any way I could support, any information I could give him. We worked at that very moment in our first meeting to kind of establish how we were going to make sure that the students had a musical because they hadn't had one the previous year prior to him coming on, because of the chaos around having a principal that disappeared in 2023 without explanation. And then we had an interim principal the year after that. Okay. And the musical just didn't happen because there was some confusion about the importance of that production and just how it may or may not have been budgeted for. Since the principal was not there at the end of the previous year, I'm not sure how that budget was devised at that point. But so in meeting with him initially, everything we were both really enthusiastic about everything. In my first meetings with him, there were some concerns raised and a couple of red flags that I just kind of stored away.
Okay.
But there were things that happened in that meeting that, sent my antennas up. And I even shared it with him at that time that it was a cause for concern, but it didn't stop anything from us working together.
What was the cause of concern, if you might share?
So there were some things that I brought to his attention about different individuals who were volunteering in the building that parents had expressed to me having concerns about. And there was some, in that moment, when I was expressing to him about the individuals, he gave the indication that he had no clue who I was talking about. And then later on in the conversation, admitted to knowing this person and actually having a familial connection with them, which to me was raised a red flag to, in one breath, kind of act like you had no idea what I was talking about, asked me for the person's name, asked me if I had a picture of them. And then, and I pulled up their Instagram and showed it to him. He sat there still like he had no clue who this person was.
So you felt deceived?
Yes, I felt, but I did say to him, I could understand how this would be uncomfortable. Mm-hmm. And everything that I've shared with you, I expect you to take, professionally and not, express to this person who you have this familial connection with, just for the sake of the students.
Was this a woman or a man?
It was a man.
And what was some of the behavior or concerns that were raised around this person's behavior?
There was some uncomfortability from from parents in regard to their interaction with with students. Um, Over, he had volunteered there for a while. There was a point in time when he was uh, not permitted to volunteer anymore. And then once the administration changed, this person was back because there was no other
Oversight.
administrator left that knew that, that he had previously been not allowed to volunteer there.
And was it inappropriate? Was this?
I don't want to. There was speculation and allegation of inappropriate behavior, but I know that there was also investigation done that I don't have the end result in the investigation.
But there was,
I do know that.
But there was clearly something that this person didn't come back, and then they came back with another administration, which then prompted you to raise this to the principal, to which they pretended they were not aware of the person, and then later in the same conversation acknowledged they were aware of the person.
Yes. But also, did say to me that their paramount, concern and duty and responsibility was to ensuring that the students were safe and, that parents and students were comfortable alike. And then as this is before school started, once school started, I realized that that person had a larger presence than they had previously had, despite the conversation that was had with the principal. He was more present than he had ever been since I had been there. So that, that was alarming, to say the least. But I didn't let that color how I interacted with the principal. And I continued to, I did bring it up to him, and we had another conversation about it somewhere around October when there was an investigation. And he did say that, there was nothing in writing anywhere, but now that he was putting something in writing, whether he's there or not, we would not have this incident again. So, that person is no longer volunteering there. And that's not to, I can't speak to whether or not it was founded, unfounded, or what the outcome of that was.
But when you brought it up, was the person's no longer there now, volunteering?
No longer there now.
And was that following you raising the issue?
No. When I raised the issue, it was in the summer. It was around July or August. When September came around, that person, I realized, there was no heed to what I had said, which is, everybody has to make their own assessment. He was the leader of that school, whatever he, however he investigated that or didn't investigate it, that was not my call. I gave him the information.
Gotcha.
And at that point, I realized that person that I gave him that information about was there more than they had ever been there in my tenure at CAPA.
Wow.
And so it appeared to me that it wasn't taken seriously, or that there wasn't enough caution around the concerns that I raised from other parents that had reached out to me. It wasn't.
Did you share?
It wasn't necessarily
understood. And did you share the nature and the details of those allegations with the principal more candidly?
I did.
Okay,
I did.
And so they were aware very clearly of why there was concerns.
Yes. Now, whether or not those things were founded,
right? But
I gave him what parents gave me.
You did give the heads up.
Yes.
Okay. And so this is the first, I guess, red flag.
Yes.
So then when did things go left? I mean, it seems like in the beginning, you were optimistic in trying. I mean, this person is a Black man who is the principal of this prestigious school.
Yes.
We know there's you're a Black woman, president of this association. So both of you all in many ways are unique in the Philadelphia school district.
Yes.
When it comes to schools like this, we don't see this with Masterman. You don't see this with, Girls High or other schools. So for you two to have a Black male principal, a Black woman over this type of parent group, this is a unique combination. I can imagine for you trying to come into this situation with a level of goodwill and good faith.
Yes.
When did you feel like, outside of that awkward moment, when did things get weird? When did you begin to be pessimistic, and when did stuff go left? What was that moment in this?
I can't say I ever became pessimistic. I can say that I became acutely aware.
Okay.
That there were major concerns and around the capability of this person to fulfill the responsibilities of the job. And there were just different meetings that we would sit in and again, this was his first year as a principal at this school. However, he had been a principal within Philadelphia School District for approximately 8 years. So he wasn't new to being a principal. He was just new to CAPA High School. And so there was in certain meetings we would sit in and we would talk. There were certain fundamental principal responsibilities that he wasn't aware of, and he would just say, "Oh, I never knew that. I didn't know we were supposed to be doing that." And for me, it was like, for 8 years, how could you not know that this was a requirement of the district? Simple things like, CAPA does a lot of productions and shows outside of school hours. And so there is a need for, I don't know what the proper term, but it's a use of facilities that they have to make the district aware that the building will be open after hours, that they've needed, a certain level of building engineers, security, school police, whatever, available to them. And those things weren't initially done. And so he said, I guess I'm in trouble because I just realized I just got a memo this weekend saying that, or this week saying that over the weekend I should have done X, Y, and Z, and I never knew I was supposed to do that. So different things like that just raised, continued to raise red flags for me. And then it was the larger issue was around his first year when he didn't quite understand the enrollment process for the following year and how to get the enrollment to the numbers that it needed to be. And there was a lot of issue around that from parents, teachers, and even I remember the assistant superintendent having to come in and have a meeting because the numbers were not going to be what they needed to be to sustain. Right. And so and we were looking at losing staff because that audition process was not run properly. And part of it, that was also the first year that they were doing this whole new lottery system where, if you get into your first choice, your other 4 choices go away for the students, right? And so if you didn't put CAPA as number 1, and if you put CAPA as number 2 and you got into your number 1, CAPA was no longer an option. So there was just a lot of misunderstanding on his part around how to run that process. And it highlighted his inability to kind of work with his staff because he had seasoned teachers there who knew how the process should run and would have been more than happy to help. But he even admitted that he operated in a bubble and he did not rely on them, although he wanted to blame them. And just his inability to take accountability. Even in our conversation, I said to him, I said, well, regardless of where you feel like the teachers may have had some fault, this is your school and it is your responsibility to govern and guide the way they are accepting students. And so you're going to have to fall on your sword here. And I told him, I said, and if you do and you're transparent, these parents and teachers will support you and say, hey, if you tell them, hey, this is my first time, I've learned, this is learned lessons, it'll be better next year. You guys keep working with me, keep holding me accountable. That was not a possibility for him. What he said to me in turn is, I'm about to become a dictator. And because these teachers, I'm going to tell you, these teachers, this is their fault. And I said to him in that phone conversation,
No, wait,
I said,
hold on. Did he verbatimly describe himself as a dictator?
He said he was going to become a dictator.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
And he said that to you.
He said that to me on the phone. And it was early morning because I was trying to get my youngest daughter, ready for school.
Mm-hmm.
And she was still home. I was packing lunch. And I said to him, I said, Alonzo, that is not going to work here. And I said to him, I said, I can understand, your nervousness because we were supposed to have a meeting that evening, a home and school meeting. And so he said to me, I feel like this is getting ready to be a setup because I see all these teachers and stuff looking for the link and telling other teachers to attend. When have we ever had teachers attend the parent association meeting? And I said, we don't often, but they're always welcome. I said, if you go in there and you are transparent, everybody makes mistakes. No one does everything right all the time. If you go in there and you tell them exactly how it went and where you can do better next time, you'll have more time to do better. And they will accept that and they will count it on grace because this is your first year here with CAPA dealing with this, the way that CAPA and other special admit schools accept their students. That was not a possibility for him. He just could not fathom admitting any fault in the way that process went. And so that was a huge red flag. And at that point, I realized that this was going to be a bigger issue because CAPA was going to continue to decline without the number of students and because it's not that we don't have the talent in the city. We absolutely do.
Right.
You know, Philadelphia is full of talent.
No, totally.
And we had students opting not to come to CAPA, not to apply to CAPA. And largely due to circumstances that maybe even took place before he got there. Because we had a principal who disappeared in 2023 without any explanation, even to this day, still no explanation, that went on to then take GAMP to the next level. Like why? And so the question at CAPA was, why weren't we worthy of having a principal that could and knew how to continue CAPA's legacy, right? And so I think that put a sour taste in a lot of counselors and other parents, just in the opportunity to apply to CAPA. They didn't take that opportunity like people have been doing in previous years. And so from that, and he and I used to talk all the time. I'm talking 7 o'clock in the morning, 9 o'clock at night, just to recap anything that I heard that I could give him a heads up on. I would talk to him and try, because we really wanted CAPA to come out of the chaos it had been in since 2023. So we were really invested in taking CAPA to the next level. And so we were committed. And it just became a third job, trying to get this principal to understand where things were falling short. And so I told him, my first board meeting that I went to was April 24th, 2025. And I told him, I went in his office that prior to going to the board meeting, before spring break, I went and sat in his office and we talked. Mm-hmm. And I told him I plan to go to the board meeting in April. Right. And we talked about it, and he never once asked me what I was going to say. Had he asked me, I would have told him. I was silently hoping I'm a very transparent and upfront and direct person. Clearly. Had he asked me, I would have told him. Yeah. And so then on the day of the board meeting, I made it my business to go to his office before that board meeting. And I said, I'm on my way to the board meeting. And I sat there on his couch in his office, and he said, or he asked me the weirdest question, like, are you excited? And I said, no, I'm not at all. I'm not, number one, I'm taking the time out of, family time to go sit in his board meeting, which they can be quite arduous at times. And so, and so I said to him, I said, I'm going to speak to the failures of the district. And so I don't think that was internalized in a way that some of the way that he was handling CAPA was due to the failures of the district and not giving us leadership that could handle the needs of a school like
So
CAPA.
Your critique was, when you went to the hearing in April of 2025, was that you felt that the school district hired the wrong person for the job.
Yes, that was the feeling of a lot of parents. But yes, we felt like the school district hired. At that moment, we knew that he may not be the right person, but we also felt like they were failing in the supports that he should have received prior to being given that school. Because he didn't come from a special admit school. He was not properly, in my opinion, prepared to handle that admission process, right? And so, although what I didn't know then is that he had a coach. I knew that he had a coach, but I did not know that was not part of the process for the amount of time that he had the coach. He had the coach almost daily. And after getting more familiar with the district policies and the district and the way they handle situations like that, I don't know of another principal who's had a daily coach. I don't know of another principal who had a retired principal come into the school every single day and co-principal with them. So he was actually getting supports. And despite those supports, it just wasn't working. So yes, my point to the district was that they were continuing to fail CAPA. After 2023, having our principal disappear, and then 23 through 24, we had an interim principal. And then here we are, 24, 25, with a principal who by March of 25, we realized really could not, maybe even before March, but by March, we were certain that whatever he was being given wasn't enough to get him through successfully governing CAPA.
Okay. And so we get into 2026. We get into the 2025-2026 school year. And at this point, clearly, it's obvious that things have gone up to a certain degree. He's recognizing that you're very concerned about his performance. Other parents are as well. This wasn't done in a vacuum. It seems that there was a sense, a cloud. You sent me some receipts. And it seems like this is where things really escalate, is around these junior proms and this funding. And this money that was missing and then kind of reappeared, according to documents that you sent. I've seen these receipts for listeners. I've seen some of the details. And so, in your own words, what happened here with this money? And I guess this is where everything kind of really, really blows up.
Yes.
What's the allegation? Because it's apparently there was some money missing. Then there seems to be what you would describe as a financial cover-up by the district.
Yes. So
what happened here? Yeah.
Yep. So in this position, I've come to make to establish a lot of relationships in the district, in the school, and just throughout the city, period. And so, well, not just through this relationship, but largely through this relationship. And so, what I was apprised of is that on the night of the junior prom, when a check needed to be written, he was advised by finance, the school district finance, that he did not have the money. And this was the night of the junior prom.
And this is the 2026 junior prom?
2026 junior prom.
So this is a couple of months ago.
This was a couple of months ago.
Okay.
The money was not there. And so what I learned, not from him, was that the district loaned him the money that night for him to pay for that junior prom.
How much money?
I don't know, have an exact figure, but it was somewhere around $8,000 or $9,000.
Okay.
Give or take.
Okay.
And so that was concerning. And even other people within the district, just other people within the district that I have spoken to had no clue that this was even an option. Like, you have to manage your student activities funds, your student activity budget. There's nothing, who knew that you could borrow money from the district when you mishandle the money in your budget? Because junior proms and senior proms are paid for. And I know this because I, along with other parents, ran the junior prom 2024. They're paid for by the ticket sales. So you come up with a number, a minimum, and you let that venue know what that minimum is, and then come up with a price, and you choose your menu based on that price point, right? And so you're able to afford that junior prom. And a lot of these venues in the city are great about working with the school district of Philadelphia and their proms and their different events, because the schools are 501c3s. And so they do have certain funding and ways that they will work with you to make your event happen. And so the question became, where was the money? Why wasn't the money available for the junior prom?
So let's back up real quick. First off, never heard of a situation of a on the night call for school district to just drop money into CAPA. That is I've never heard anything like that in my life. Didn't even know the school district had money like that to just say, okay, we're going to drop some money. Second of all, there was no money prior to y'all have junior proms every year. How they didn't have the money? Why wouldn't they not have the money before?
So I'm not sure. Yeah, I'm not sure how they budget for those events. I do know that in 2024 there was nothing in the budget for a junior prom. That class was slated not to have a junior prom. Parents got together and decided our children are having a junior prom, and it wasn't going to be at the school. They're at that school every single day. No one wanted to get dressed up. None of those students wanted to get dressed up to come to their school to have their junior prom. And so we worked with another parent who had a relationship with a venue, and we were able to work with that venue. That venue so graciously worked with us to ensure that we could come up with a number that met their minimum, or that they could meet our minimum. And we had a teacher at the school that was putting in so many hours outside of the workday to make sure he was that class's class sponsor. And so he was putting in so much work to make sure that we were able to have that junior prom. And we pulled it off without it being in the district, in CAPA's school budget. It was not in it. We did ticket sales. I don't know how much fundraising we really, the ticket sale was the fundraising.
Okay.
And we were able to meet the cost.
And
so I don't know.
And how many students were roughly at that junior prom last year in 2024 or 2020?
Last year, 24 or last year?
Well, the year that you had to raise the money.
The year that we had to raise, it was probably 100, give or take.
Okay, so that's not bad. No,
it's not bad.
So fast forward to 2026.
Mm-hmm.
You all weren't aware whether there was or was not a budget, but it was money. He got the money and was able to make it do. Did you all sell tickets that year? I mean, was there already efforts in place to raise money for the junior prom prior to this ask?
The school, I'm sure, sold the tickets. This year, I will say that Principal Fulton put a lot of effort into icing out this parent organization, because it was very difficult for him to fathom working with me, although I had conversations with him and I did tell him, I am happy to work with you. That is not, as long as you are here, I'm going to work with you. I said, I can understand how you would take last year, me testifying at the board. I understand how you would have taken that personally, because he did express that he took it personally, because in his mind, I was coming after his livelihood. And so I said to him, it wasn't about you. That was professional. It wasn't personal. It was personal for you because you see it as your livelihood being in jeopardy. And I said to him, well, I still feel the same way this year. About everything that I said, I stand behind it. But I'm still going to work with you. And so I wasn't really in on... Despite that, I still wasn't really in on how they were raising money for the junior prom. They really could have leaned on our organization a lot heavier, because we are good at raising funds. And I do know I was a little surprised at the venue for the 26th junior prom, because it was said in 2025, when they used the same venue that we used in 2024, that he had said to us he signed a 5-year contract with that particular venue, and that from 5 years forward, that would be the venue for the junior prom. So this year, when I learned that it wasn't the same venue, and what venue it was this year escapes me, but because I wasn't really involved in the process, but it wasn't the same venue from the last 2 previous years.
So so basically, you're accusing him of reneging on what he had previously suggested.
Or not being honest. I don't know that there was ever a 5-year contract. Okay. I never saw it. It's just what he told us.
So you never saw the contract?
Never saw it. He just told us that it was. But because I had established that relationship with that venue, they did reach out to me in 25 when they hadn't received payment at different times. He did eventually pay them for 25's junior prom, but it was, I had to call him like, listen, the prom is scheduled for this week. They haven't received their payment yet. He said, I'm gonna walk it over there right now. I'll take it right over there right now. So he did end up taking it over there.
And that was in 2025. But then this year, whole new venue, you're iced out. I guess you're feeling as if you're iced out as a retaliation for you speaking up in 2025 during the hearing. So,
absolutely. So
ever since you did the hearing and you spoke up that day, the relationship really iced at that point? Was it really it went up at that point since then?
It did. So, and let me be clear. I didn't just speak at one board meeting. I spoke at the board meetings until the end of the school year. Every board meeting at the end until the end of the school year. So, so he was feeling some type of way. But yes, and I did realize that the relationship was fractured. There was an erosion of trust on both parts. Mm-hmm. And Dr. Nguyen did try to do monthly meetings, as she called it, like a healing. But like I told her, I didn't have anything to heal from. I was going to continue to do my due diligence to make sure CAPA got what they deserved. And in terms of administration, whether that is talking to the district, and I didn't, I didn't come in there one way and do something different, right? I came in there just as I was, saying exactly what I believed to be true, which was that CAPA deserved better administration. And so in this year, they did have 2 assistant principals that did all the heavy lifting. And even with that, there was still huge failures, not on the assistant principals, but just on the part of the principal. And need I say they had 2 assistant principals that the numbers of students that they had did not warrant. So the district over-resourced CAPA in an effort to neutralize some of the incompetencies of this principal. And although we appreciated it because it ran smoother than it would have without them, it's in a district that is strapped for cash. I'm not sure how that was possible. And they're over-resourcing again next year. But
So what do you mean by over-resourcing? You feel like they're giving way more money to CAPA, the school district
absolutely.
is.
So the rule for during 24-25 school year, the rule that was in place for assistant principals that you had to have a minimum of 600 kids in order to get an assistant principal. We may have just cracked that 600 number. We were slated to be like 599. I think they pushed it. They accepted a couple of kids after the fact, and it was over. It was a little over 600. Great. Happy to have an assistant principal. They gave us 2 assistant principals.
So they gave you double of what was the requirement?
Mm-hmm. And then for this year, we're getting 2 assistant principals again, but they have lowered the criteria. Now you only need 500 students in order to get an assistant principal. So,
but you're still getting 2, even though you barely hit the requirements for the first one.
Yes.
Why is that happening? Why do you think that they're giving you all more?
Well, in my meetings with Dr. Dawson and Dr. Watlington, I asked candidly, wouldn't it be more economically feasible to have one competent principal and one assistant principal rather than having to spend all of these additional funds on a coach, 2 APs, and a principal?
So what you're implying here is that you think that the school district provided more resources to CAPA to cape for this man to stay in the position.
Absolutely. I don't know why. We can only speculate.
Right.
Optics. Yeah.
Right. But was such resources provided prior with other principals that
CAPA had not had an assistant principal. CAPA got an assistant principal with COVID when there was COVID money in the budget, right?
Yes.
So there was supposed to be an assistant principal for 1 year. So we did have an assistant principal, I want to say in 2020, it started.
Yeah.
But prior to that, CAPA had enrollment numbers of 745, 755 with no assistant principal. But that was when we had a competent principal or a principal that made it run. I think that we didn't realize just how competent our administration was at that time because it was running like a well-oiled machine without anyone walking around beating their chest.
So let's do the logic here. Based on your analysis here.
Mm-hmm.
More students, 700 enrolled, can't get an assistant principal even though you're qualified to.
Didn't want one, didn't need one.
It wasn't that
they could have gotten one. They didn't. They decided to use those funds that would have been for an assistant principal to put toward CAPA programming instead of putting it toward an assistant principal. And because there was no deficit in the responsibilities in the building, everything was still getting handled.
Okay, so this has been clocked. So now we get to 2026, 2025, and you're getting 2 additional principals.
Mm-hmm.
Barely qualify for one on the margin, whether give or take, but got another one.
Mm-hmm.
That money that could be given to CAPA for other resources and things, that money's being prioritized to staffing?
Well, it's not money that we would even have at all. It would be money that would go to a different school within the district. It's not money that CAPA, with our enrollment count, it's not money that CAPA would have earned.
So you're saying that they're just spending more money here, and you're arguing that for another school that could use an assistant principal.
Mm-hmm.
You're not.
And don't get me wrong. I'm grateful because with the lack of competency in the principal that we have, we absolutely benefited from those 2 assistant
But
principals.
you're arguing at the same time that
Mm-hmm.
if you all had a better principal, you wouldn't need 2 assistant principals.
Yes.
Maybe 1 assistant principal would be cute, but this is
Yes.
money that the district is spending in this way that you're saying
It is not
arguably
equitable.
it's not equitable, and also with all the things we got going on with the money, you could spread this out a little bit.
Mm-hmm.
That's a pretty big damn that's a big assert. It's mind blowing. It is.
Yeah.
It's mind blowing. It's mind blowing to me because you're right. I don't understand why you would need 2 when you can barely qualify for 1, and you got this new principal that they're acting as if isn't a problem. Because if you're a good principal and your performance is good, why would you need 2 assistant principals and yourself when you have a strong teachers association? You got all these other things, parent association, you got all these things. Okay.
And so so the CAPA is a beautiful place that has turned out very successful people.
Yes.
And so the focus this year seemed to be on bringing back some of those successful people for photo ops to give the illusion that CAPA was somehow doing better.
What's the illusion? Who are some of the names that you all brought back?
Jasmine Sullivan, Brett Gray, some very amazing people.
Okay.
You know, Leslie Odom was there at the end of the prior year.
Oh, okay.
So
you got a Grammy winner, an Oscar nominated, Tony Award winner. You got a nice group.
People.
Okay.
My 11-year-old trying to bust things.
Yeah.
I'm sorry.
But no, so there seems to be an image repair happening
Yes.
here, is what you're getting to. And there's nothing wrong with that. I get it.
No.
But at the same time, that's still not addressing the principal problem
it was an optical illusion. There was no actual repair being done. It was just for photo op. And and there was real work needing to be done that was being overlooked. And that is evident even in the dress code violation debacle that happened that was covered by CBS, NBC, ABC.
Yes.
You name it. It was covered. There are visuals out there of just a snippet of how the administration was not equipped to handle CAPA's needs.
So let's get back to the money here. Mm-hmm. Junior prom money comes. It's weird. He asks for money. What happens after that when the money, he makes this emergency overnight request and the district drops his money? Yeah.
It was told that it would need to be paid back. At which point, peculiarly, whatever, however you say it.
Yeah.
It was very peculiar that at that point, when it came time for the senior prom, there was this call for donations for students who could not pay for their senior prom, but wanted to participate.
They wanted to participate,
so for students who wanted to participate and didn't have the financial means, there was this call for support from the community and parents or whomever could see fit to assist and donate money. There was a lot of whisper that was in large part to put toward actually returning, paying back that money that was paid for the junior prom.
So this all happened. So for those who want to catch up with this logic, it's 2026. Your association, the parents was not really involved in the junior prom as they were previously in different ways. This time, you're iced out after calling him out in 2025. It's 2026. There's a junior prom. Clearly, he doesn't have the money to pay for it. Ask for some emergency support around $8,000 to $9,000, around that amount roughly. School district gives it to him. Never heard of this before. I've never heard of school district just dropping money like that, but they do. From the finance department, that junior prom goes on without a hitch. Mm-hmm. Now you all are getting ready for senior prom. And now there's being an ask for donations, gifts, as they say. But there was a request for donations. And rather than that money being raised for donations to support the senior prom, you are suggesting or speculating that that money was actually used to cover the junior prom money that needs to go back to the school district? Because now there's a deficit.
The intention.
Okay.
I think that was the intention. However, I don't believe there was a whole lot garnered in financial support for the what was named to be seniors.
Why? Why was that? Why you don't believe that?
I just, when I would ask how much have we raised and how do you plan, if he was saying we had 15 or so students who could not afford their senior dues and proms and things, I said, what happens if we get enough to cover one student? You know, how do you determine which student we get? And he said, well, we haven't really received much at this point, but I would just have to decide which student. And I said, I don't think that would be fair. I think that you would need to take whatever amount you get and spread it amongst the 15.
Like a reimbursement, like a reallocation, or subsidize. Like you would subsidize the expenses. So
like
rather
everybody might get $20 off, whatever.
Right, off a ticket. Okay, I mean that sounds.
That was my suggestion. I just think the lack of thought that went into how he would disperse any donation spoke loudly to me that this may not have been exactly how it was going to be used. And then fast forward just a smidgen, and I receive a call from the district, from someone at the school, almost, kind of frantic, telling me 2 days before the senior prom, they didn't have the money for the senior prom. And if there's any way that the parent association could help to get that money.
Who called you? Who?
Not
the who. The is it a parent? You said it was a parent.
No, it was someone in administration at CAPA called me as the president of the parent association, asking, if there was a way we could support the senior prom. And I said, well, what kind of support are you talking about here? And so they told me they were about between $8,000 and $10,000 short for the senior prom. Yep.
And when did they tell you this? Like, how far from the prom?
It was like 2 days from the senior prom. And so I said, I started asking questions. And I said, first of all, I had already called the senior prom venue. So I already found out that their minimum, they booked a venue with a very high minimum, a minimum of like 180 something kids. They had to have a minimum of like 180 some kids come to the senior prom in order to meet their, with the cost
beverage
of the prom.
menu. Yeah.
We never have 180 something kids go to the prom, and we've never booked a venue with that minimum.
Oh God, no.
Right. So that is the minimum.
Right.
That's not something that we did, and usually venues will work with us, right? So anyway, so with that, I started asking questions that apparently made this administrator very uncomfortable, because they said they had to call me back, and so I started to send messages asking, how are we going to make sure that this doesn't continue to happen? They're like, and so then they did walk it back, and they said, oh, actually this money is for the students. We just want to raise money for kids who can't afford their senior dues and their prom. And they never called me back. This was through text. It's just for kids who can't afford the senior prom and their senior dues. We're just trying to raise money. And then they talked about the different ways they were going to try to raise money.
So they contacted you, brought this smoke to your desk, told you that pretty much they had a serious crisis, and then shortly after
once I started asking questions,
we started prying and looking into it. Then they walked it back to say, oh, my bad. No, we just need to help the kids. Yeah.
Never called back.
Yeah.
So I followed up in text message, and it was like, oh no, we just need it for the senior dues and for students who can't afford the prom.
Okay.
And I said, well, good luck. Because I can't. It would not have been responsible to not have accurate information and give that level of financial support without any understanding as to how this happened and why it wouldn't continue to happen.
Did they ask you for a specific amount? Did they tell you what the amount of money?
They did not. They just told me what the amount was that was missing.
And what was missing? How much?
Between $8,000 to $10,000 for the senior prom.
Oh my God. Which is around the same amount of money they needed for the junior prom.
And so with that, they were told they were told, the district was told them they weren't writing it. They weren't doing it. They weren't writing a check for that. And so,
because I guess they hadn't paid the district back. I mean,
no, it was only a couple of weeks. So no, they hadn't paid the district back, and
what's the time frame between the junior prom and the senior prom?
it was only a few weeks, maybe 3 weeks.
Okay, so
4
this
weeks.
is like so they didn't have money for anybody.
Nope.
Oh my God. Oh wow.
So when I did my due diligence and I called someone at the district and I did say, I don't know how this is happening. I don't, and my question was, with this money that is being lent to this school, and at this time, we're talking about budgets for the next school year. And so I said, is this money going to be taken from next year's budget? Because we're being told that this is what is expected to be in next year's budget, because the budget wasn't final yet at this point, not made public. It might have been final, but it wasn't made public.
Gotcha.
At this point.
Yeah.
And so I was assured that no, that wasn't going to come out of next year's budget. And so I'm like, okay, well, how, and from my understanding, what was told to me from other administrators within the school is that the money to pay for they weren't sure how the senior prom got paid for, because the district would not write a check. And any check that is issued from the district has to be issued from the district for that sum of money. So that I believe what was said to me was that it was a belief that senior dues, that money from other entities, this is where the misappropriation comes in, money that was earmarked for other things was used to pay for that senior prom, because they could not go without a senior prom. They could not get to that night and not have a senior prom. And so he used money from that was earmarked for other things, and that had to be paid back too, because, and he did give the illusion that some of the funds, there are certain things in graduation that the district pays for, right? That is not covered by dues. It's not there. There are things that the district actually funds, and some of those things were included in what Mr. Fulton claimed he needed donations for. He just wasn't clear about what that money was exactly going toward, because certain things the district pays for, their caps and gowns and things like that. But the things that he was naming that these donations would cover were things that the district actually covered.
So he was right. So what you're alleging is that basically he was, if you're asking for money for things that are already being funded by the school, then
he was in panic mode. And he didn't really know. He knew, he said what sounded good, what he thought would get people's attention, what he thought would get people's, to give.
So you're raising money for caps and gowns that the school district is already paying for.
And I'm saying caps and gowns because that's one thing that I know the district pays for. At the time, I went through and saw exactly what he was saying that the dues covered, which would be like invitation, things like that. But those weren't actually things that the dues were set to cover. The dues were covering things like yearbooks, senior luncheon, things like that. But it wasn't covering the things that he had said in his messaging that needed to be covered. Those things that he referenced, some of those things were already things that were covered by the district.
So this additional,
I don't know that caps and gowns specifically.
Right. No, totally. I understand. But pretty much here, this money though, if those things would have showed up, money wasn't going to go towards that because that had already been paid for. So money that would have been allocated for those things would have been going elsewhere. And you're saying that fundraising money was going to cover these debts that he wasn't transparent to parents about.
Absolutely. And I don't believe to this day parents know about it, because I've done my best this year.
Okay.
After seeing how much dissension it caused for him to not go public with things, but then, I didn't have to. Things made the news and I just sat quiet.
Okay.
Because there was this speculation that everything that was negative about CAPA was being brought forth by me. And so I said, you know what? I'm going to sit quiet and I'm going to allow this to play out however it plays out. I'm going to provide all the support like I've been doing. And they still couldn't stay out the news.
So, and they're clearly not about to stay out the news right now.
Yeah.
But at this point, it's gotten to a point though that it seems that there's a mode of crisis with this money. So so prom happens, senior prom does happen.
Yes.
How did they get the money, just for clarity?
You know, it was speculated from people on the inside that
Okay.
it was taken from senior dues and other monies that were in the student activities accounts earmarked for other things.
Because the
But
school
eventually
district wouldn't give him any more money.
the district would not give him
They
money.
gave money for the
However,
junior prom, though. But
however, the district did turn around, and Mike Hirschman, who was over the finance department within the district, did um, pay that money back to CAPA, the money that was misappropriated. Instead of taking it from taking it from this year's uh, budget, it was put back. And I do have receipts for that.
I saw the receipts.
Mm-hmm.
And
And
can you
I've never
detail the
seen where the
receipts?
school.
I've seen the receipts, but I want you to just detail to the listeners what these receipts look like.
So on approximately June 8th, there was a remittance of funds from the school district to the CAPA Student Activities Fund in the amount of $15,345. On July 27th, there was a remittance of funds from the school district to the CAPA Student Activities Fund for the amount of $16,597.76. And then on July 31st, there was a remittance of funds from the school district to the CAPA Student Activities Fund for the amount of $8,719.61. Now, the school district governs and oversees these accounts. They don't govern, but they do oversee these accounts because however, they do not, these student activities funds come from fundraising. That's where that money is supposed to come from. So I'm not sure, unless this is something they're doing for schools across the city where they're, giving these huge influxes of cash to their student activities funds. I would just ask that be explained and investigated. And it has been said that principals who have misappropriated much less than what comes to $40,662.37 have been gone for what amounted to single digit, a small 1,000, 5,000, 4,000 amount. There have been consequences, and somehow, in this case, there hasn't been. Now there was another. Just a financial discrepancy. There was Title IX violations, not just in the school district, in the dress code policy and the way that students were kept from their learning environments, but there was $5,191 provided in Title IX, I'm sorry, for parent and community engagement, which is a requirement. That's what was issued in the budget. At the end of the school year, we still had $5,191 in our budget for community and family engagement. There was nothing spent, which speaks largely to the account that this principal takes issue with collaborating with stakeholders and community. There are certain people that he's comfortable with, that he, may collaborate more with, but largely there's an issue and a distrust with allowing community and family engagement. There's no way we should have ended with the same amount we started with in Title IX.
So how much money are you guesstimating in total was allegedly misappropriated?
It's somewhere between that $40,662.37 and possibly. So that is what was misappropriated.
Over $40,000.
Over $40,000, but there's another lump sum of a $23,000 balance from the musical sets that were rented inappropriately and held for an additional 3 weeks, being charged per day. That were, and that set company threatened legal action and sent that notification to the district, and the district paid that $23,000 bill. So on top of the over $40,000 that they put back in the student activities fund, they also covered another $23,000, approximately $23,000 from that set company because of the negligence of returning that set to that set company. And I know, because I called this set company and I had relationships and communication with that set company, that there were, just in an effort to see whether or not there was anything that could be done on our end to facilitate getting that set back to them and determining what that cost was going to be. I didn't know whether or not it was being charged per day, and it was being charged per day. And it was roughly $23,000 late fee
So
for that.
you just circle back and then called and double checked to just
Mm-hmm.
you're a chief articulator of the problem. No, I'm joking, but no,
I
but
know.
seriously, I'm in awe because you have definitely done your due diligence to circle back in these entities. So we're talking $60,000
Now
of
I don't know if that 23,000 is part of what was put back into that student activities fund, and that it
was money
included.
right, but was what how did you said the district covered that though?
They did, they did,
And
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 I
he's
don't
still
believe
work
that
and
it's
he's
part
still
of that 40,000.
right. So 40,000 you are like definite. But then there's a
Mm-hmm.
negligent 20,000 that could have been preventable.
Yep, 20. Yeah, it was closer to 23, but yes, it was
Yeah.
either 23 or a little more or less. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and so okay, at this point, now that we've reached this point, because we want to think about what happens next.
Mm-hmm.
That's a lot. That's heavy.
Yeah,
That's heavy. Did you let the school district know about this?
absolutely.
What did they say?
I sent an email directly to Dr. Watlington and Dr. Dawson. I
And
received.
I've seen this email too. This receipt.
And
Yeah.
so their response, I got a response from Tomas Hanna
Mm-hmm.
saying that he was also concerned. He knows exactly what I'm talking about, and it does raise great concern for him as well. And that it was going to be under investigation. And that was the last I heard of it.
And when did you send this?
I can tell you. Let me see.
Yep, I know I have it, but I like
I sent that email on May 18th because the only way the set got sent back was because I called the district directly and said, hey, and I called because the set was sitting in the hallways and it was posing a safety risk because it was these huge pieces. It wasn't like these, it wasn't like a little Barbie dream house. These were huge set pieces, right? And so Mr. Hanna emailed me back on May 21st. And so he said that he was aware of the issue that I identified, and that he was troubled by it, and that, he's limited to the information he could give out regarding personnel matters, but there were investigations underway.
That was May. This
That
is
was May
now
21st that he
mid-August, so
responded.
May to July, July to August. I mean, May to June, June to July. It's been 3 months. It's been 90 days.
Yep.
Most investigations have some update or something within the 90 days.
And I really thought that we would have some resolution, especially since there were other principals at other schools who have received their, whatever is going to be for this year. We had the principal at Frankfurt was transferred to an elementary school after 10 years of being, we had different outcomes that,
So
and
he's
no
still
outcomes
he's
here.
coming into the school year.
I haven't heard anything different. I did sit down with administration at the school district a few weeks ago, and I made it very clear that CAPA needed, competent administration. And again, they don't speak on personnel issues, which I respect to a certain extent. However, we have been asking for this we're going into our 4th or 5th year of just, chaos.
So
2 years with this principal going into our 3rd. Mm-hmm.
So I know there's been a letter that has circulated and there's been some rebellion from your end of the association.
Mm-hmm.
You all are not, I guess in many ways, in protest, not collaborating or doing financial collaborations with the school under this administration, under Alonzo's administration. Can you give me some details behind that decision and what's going on there?
Sure. So with the organization being a 501c3,
and this is CAPA Phans for those listening.
CAPA Phans, yes. I have made the decision that until there is there wasn't a whole lot of collaboration this year, even from other people working within CAPA Phans. And so there were certainly people who helped, but it became very arduous and very, just taxing to even have to try to put together efforts to work within the school and collaborate with the administration. And so I believe that it really, turned a lot of people off, and just them witnessing what they, from the outside looking in, looking like CAPA Phans and the principal couldn't work together, right? And so that people don't want to deal with that. They already have jobs. They already work. So I did make a decision that CAPA Phans would not be working within CAPA High School without there being enthusiastic collaborative efforts from an administration that appreciates stakeholders and community partners.
So that means
And
you're
that
not working with the principal there right now.
No.
Given the allegations around misappropriation of funds,
with no resolution.
you went to the school district for an investigation, didn't hear anything about it, and because of that, you've decided not to move forward until there is some level of change or justice.
Absolutely. And it's not as, it pains me because we've worked within CAPA for so many years and we really do enjoy helping the students. There was so much that was done for the different departments this year that was never publicized, and because we didn't want it to be, and so we enjoy doing that work. We enjoy seeing the students get the materials and supplies and the events that they deserve. Because I'm going to tell you, these students are of the most talented and hardest working students that I have ever seen in high school. We didn't work that hard when I was in high school. So I really do love being able to support those teachers who are committed. You see teachers there till 8, 9, 10 o'clock at night, and even on the weekends, and you see students committing the same time and effort, despite a lot of these students with their artistic abilities working outside of school hours in their craft and still devoting all this time to their school. They really do grow to love their school, and we grow to love supporting them. And it makes it so hard to say we have to put a hard stop on it, a hard pause, until the school district exhibits some level of accountability and ensuring that these hardworking students and teachers and the community partners are valued and shown value and given exactly what they deserve. And so after that, I did receive a letter from the district's inspector general asking a bunch of questions and saying that we weren't allowed to come into the building. We weren't going to be allowed access to the building. And so I did respond and tell him, I told you I didn't want access to I told you that we weren't going to be in the building. So while I appreciate your sentiment, it really was unnecessary and a waste of effort on your part to even send that.
Yeah, totally. And I think, that is, it's important to have that kind of context, because I know there has been now, I guess, a letter that you received coming from people asking about their concerns about the association. Who sent you that letter? I remember
it was sent by Dr. Wynn from
the district.
From the district. Specifically, it said the inspector general had questions regarding. We have a space within CAPA High School, which is the home and school room, where we, a lot of times house a lot of our merchandise and concessions and things like that. And so I removed all of those items. No one questioned me. No one asked anything. They're our items. We purchased them. We own them. We just house them there. And so I removed those items this summer, largely because when I did not remove them last year, I had to throw out. So someone is not calling the exterminator there. That room was ravaged by rodents because there was rodent droppings over everything. I have video. There is rodent droppings over everything. I had to throw out so much food, like candy and chips and things. I had to throw out cases of sodas because I wouldn't want anyone feeding that to my child. So you got
rodent infestation. It was chaos.
Horrible. It even ate through some of our clothing merchandise that I had to throw out. And so I removed all of those items, which, it served a twofold purpose. Like I removed it, one, because I didn't plan to be back there until there was new administration. I didn't know if there was going to be new administration, but also I didn't want, the financial loss in merchandise or, concessions we'd pretty much gone through, but I didn't want the financial loss in merchandise.
So
I removed that stuff. And
right.
it was hours to remove.
So what were they hitting you up about, the district, when they contacted you? They sent you a letter?
I removed items from that room without authorization that I didn't need, that I didn't require, and that I didn't give back the keys to that room. Historically, those keys have never been returned. We've always just passed them down through it. So no one asked for them. Had someone asked for them, they could have had them. No one asked for them.
So what was your response? Did you respond back to them?
I did. It was a nice long response detailing to them because they seem to not understand the difference between a 501c3 and the fact that I don't answer to the school district. I don't work for the school district, as we spoke about in the beginning of this interview.
Yes.
This is a volunteer position. No one gets paid through this 501c3. There is no, there's no obligation to the district per se. We've always, been a collaborative partner and given them exactly whatever they asked for, whatever they required. But when you start to see that people are asking for things with ulterior motives, it puts you on notice. And so, certain things, I told them, like, we anything that I provided to you was a courtesy, and I don't owe you anything.
What was their response back?
They haven't responded. No, they didn't respond yet. So.
And when was this letter sent to you, and when was the response to the exchange?
So it was sent to me, let me see. It was sent to me somewhere around August 11th, I think, and I responded maybe 2 or 3 days ago.
Okay. So this is recent. This is all very recent.
Mm-hmm.
So,
yeah.
so
August 13th is when it was sent to me. I'm sorry.
Oh, yes, yeah, got you. So it was like about a week ago. So what are the next steps? What do you want people to know? What change do you want?
So the change that I want is, I want the district to be accountable. There is clear malfeasance here. And in instances with clear malfeasance, I don't see how you don't do what's in the best interest of students. And so we're working with a district who claims that the students and the families are paramount to their success, right? And that they are the focal point of this district. Yet we have a school who is going into the 4th, maybe 5th year of just chaos. And I know that there needs to be an investigation around the funds, the Title IX violations. I don't know how, with that level of malfeasance, we just overlook it and cover it up. There is clear indication in these allegations that there is a deficiency in the ability to manage the funds, that come directly from taxpayers. There's an inability to manage these funds within this school community under this administration. And we need to understand how that is being rectified, and how we can have some resolution and assurances that we're not going to run into these same problems year after year after year with this same administration. What I ultimately believe is necessary is a new principal. And it's business at this point. These students deserve someone who can run this building, who they can have faith in, who parents can have faith in. There have been so many that we just talked about this year. We didn't even go into the details of the safety instances and safety breaches that happened in his first year. There's just so much, and there's not enough time in any interview to cover all of them at once. We would need a separate interview for each year, so there has to be some level of investigation, some level of accountability beyond saying these are personnel matters and we can't disclose the outcome of personnel matters when we see the outcome is that we continue to suffer.
Absolutely. So I thank you so much for your transparency, for your courage, because I know it's not easy to. I mean, you live in Philadelphia.
It is not.
You went to Lincoln, so I know Lincoln alum are about to go, cuckoo for Cocoa Puffs.
Yeah. And listen, I did not do this lightly. I did not do this lightly, any of it. And my daughter was still there when I initially started going to board meetings, but I could not only act in the best interest of my own child. She didn't suffer from any of those any of those issues that year, but it wasn't about my own child. I had people on the board of CAPA Phans who said to me, well, that didn't affect my daughter. So that didn't affect my child. So it doesn't bother me. And I said, as a leader And in the leadership role, you can not only do what benefits or impacts you and your family, you have to take the concerns of the broader community and be willing to advocate for them. And that's just what it is, especially when they are things that are true. You know, you can't just take all the complaints and just go, but you have to see it and know that it's true. And these are facts. Some of these instances have been proven. Most of them have been proven. There's proof. And so I didn't do this lightly. I had to go to school with my daughter every single day from in May until she graduated because of the retaliation she was experiencing in that school. And I made Tomas Hanna, Dr. Dawson, and Dr. Watlington, and Dr. Wynn aware of it at that time, and nothing was done. And so I had to take matters into my own hands and go to school with her every single day until she graduated.
Well, that's unfortunate. That's unfortunate.
Mm-hmm.
But these are the tough decisions, and I definitely think that. I mean, I've learned a lot. I think a lot of people will learn a lot, and we'll be following this. Keep me posted on the updates. But this is the back to school. School's going to start very soon, and with all these changes to the district, the audits, the conversation, there's a lot to carry here. It's bigger than just Alonzo.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely.
It's bigger than him, but I mean, he's clearly at CAPA allegedly a catalyst to some of these problems.
Mm-hmm.
But this is heavy. Well, thank you so much for coming on the
welcome.
show.
Thank you.
To all of those listening, if people want to reach out, because there's people who are like, how can we help? What can they do? What do you ask of the people to do? How would you want community to show up for you or for CAPA? Is it contacting the district? Like what are you asking for from community?
So I think that parents have to be, I think that oftentimes in high school, we tend to push back, right? And pull back and allow our students to kind of be more independent. They're going into adulthood. High school is not the time to pull away. High school is the time to be involved because you're now guiding life-changing decisions that they're making and life-changing events that are happening in high school. You got to be involved. You have to call the district. You have to go to the district. There are so many things happening with the freshmen coming in this year that parents are not going to be aware of if they are not involved. They have classroom sizes of 48. Because of the way that this admission process was run for this upcoming school year. Parents are not going to know that if they're not talking to their kids, if they're not in that school building, if they're not demanding transparent communication. They have classroom sizes of 48. That goes against all contractual agreements. You're talking about English here. They have to be involved. There's so much that they just, if you don't ask it, and then sometimes if you do ask it, they are not going to tell you. You have to go to the district, you have to go to the school, you have to just be present. You have to ask the right questions. You have to not be afraid to ask these questions. I find that in a school like CAPA, parents tend to sometimes be a little more reserved because they're embarking on some of them, their career paths. And so Philadelphia is a small artistic community, and you're so afraid to ruffle feathers for the impact that it might have on your child's ability to go further in their craft, in their city. And I'm not willing to sacrifice one for the other.
That's right. I agree.
They've got to be involved. I don't need them to show up for me. I need them to show up for these children.
I hear that.
Well, I got me.
I hear that. I hear that. That's how I feel sometimes. I'm like, I just need y'all to not be in my way. How about that? Because that's what it is too. It's like, I don't need people to necessarily do anything to support. I mean, read, share, amplify, but if you could just stay out my way, that would be the best thing sometimes, because some people will do that or gaslight me. Don't gaslight me.
Yes.
Don't gaslight you, right? I would imagine.
And don't be mad at the messenger for giving the information that the people deserve to have.
Oh, I hear that.
So many people in CAPA want to protect the reputation of CAPA, not realizing that CAPA was one of the top schools in the nation and now has turned into a laughingstock because of instances like this. And so you're not protecting the reputation of CAPA. What you're doing is allowing for these maladaptive behaviors to continue to tear it down, and
heard. Well, thank you so much.
You're so welcome.
And I appreciate it. And to those who are listening, where to find this show. Spread the word. Let people know what's going on. We would love to see positive change at CAPA and other schools in this district. And as always, be well and be best.
Ernestly Speaking is recorded in Philadelphia, Pennsylvania, and can be found on Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts. To stay up to date with the latest on the show, follow me on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram at Mr. Ernest Owens. Use the hashtag Ernestly Speaking to tell me what you thought about this episode, and check out my website at ernestowens.com.